There are people in your life right now who are taking from you, and they have made sure you feel grateful for the privilege. My name is Julia. I am 86 years old, and it took me most of my life to understand what I am about to tell you. I want you to stay with me for a few minutes, because this is not a warning dressed up as wisdom. This is something I lived through slowly and quietly, the way most painful things happen to a person. Not all at once, just a little at a time, until one day you look up and realize you have been slowly emptied out by people who smiled at you the entire time. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the youngest of 4 children, and from the time I was very small, I was taught that being useful was the highest thing a person could be. My mother used to say that a woman who serves her family well has lived a life worth living, and I believed her completely. I carried that belief the way you carry something precious close to your chest for decades. I built my entire identity around it. I was the one who showed up. I was the one who stayed late, who brought the food, who made the phone calls, who remembered the birthdays. I was the one you could count on, and for a long time, that felt like enough. I married Thomas when I was 24 years old. He was a quiet, steady man, a man who worked with his hands and said very little, but meant everything he said. Thomas loved me in the way that good men love, not with grand gestures, but with consistency. He was there, always there, and in the 51 years we were married, I never once had to wonder where I stood with him. I knew. He showed me every single day. But Thomas and I were surrounded by people who were not like him, and it took me an embarrassingly long time to see the difference. There was a woman in our lives, a relative on my side of the family, who I will not name because names are not the point. The point is the pattern. She had a way of arriving in my life during her difficult moments and disappearing during mine. Whenever something went wrong for her car needed fixing, her children were struggling, her rent came up short, she would call and she would talk, and somewhere in the conversation there would be a need. Sometimes it was money, sometimes it was time, sometimes it was just someone to absorb her distress so she could set it down and walk away lighter. And I was always there to absorb it, because that was who I was. That was who I had decided to be. What I did not understand then, and what I want you to understand now, is that she was not malicious. That is the part that makes this so complicated and so hard to see when you are in the middle of it. She did not wake up in the morning and decide to use me. She simply knew, without ever having to think about it consciously, that I would give. She had learned it the way water learns the shape of a riverbed. She flowed toward me because I had always been low ground for her, and every time I gave without limit, I was teaching her that the arrangement was acceptable. Years passed. Thomas retired. Our children grew up and moved to different states, and our world got quieter. I had more time to sit with my own thoughts. And that is when things started to become visible that I had been too busy to see before. I began to notice that certain relationships in my life had a very particular shape to them. I would feel a specific kind of tiredness after spending time with certain people, not the good kind of tired you feel after a long day of meaningful work, the other kind, the kind that makes you feel hollow. I would drive home from a visit or hang up the phone and feel as though something had been taken from me, though I could not have told you exactly what or exactly when. And then, not long after, that person would be fine, back to their life, energized, moving forward, while I sat with an emptiness I could not quite name. Thomas noticed before I did. He said to me one evening, we were sitting on the porch after supper, he said, "Julia, you give that woman everything she asks for, and she has never once asked how you are doing. Not once." I remember looking at him and feeling defensive at first, the way you feel when someone shows you something you have been working very hard not to see. I said something like, "She is going through a hard time." And Thomas looked at me gently and said, "She is always going through a hard time, and you are always the one who makes it easier. And I have watched this for 30 years, and I have never seen her return the favor." He was not wrong. He was never wrong about things like that. Thomas had a clarity about people that I lacked because I was always too close, too invested, too willing to explain away what I was seeing. After Thomas passed 9 years ago now, I found myself more alone than I had ever been in my life, and in that aloneness, I started to see things with a terrible, quiet clarity. The people who had been in my life for what I could offer them, they drifted, not all at once, slowly, a phone call that stopped coming, an invitation that was never extended, a warmth that cooled without explanation. And I sat in my house and I thought, was it me? Did I do something wrong? And then one morning I woke up and I thought, no, I did something right. I stopped being useful and they moved on, and that told me everything I needed to know about what the relationship had actually been. What I want you to understand, and I mean this for people of every age, is that using someone does not always look like cruelty. It does not always look like selfishness. Sometimes it looks like friendship, sometimes it looks like family, sometimes it looks like love. There are people who are very skilled at making their taking feel like a gift to you. They let you help them, and then they make you feel needed, special, chosen, because you are the one they turn to. And that feeling of being chosen can be so powerful, so intoxicating, that you miss the fact that it is the only thing they are offering you. The feeling of being needed in exchange for everything you have. I have thought about why I was so susceptible to this for so long, and I think it comes back to what I was taught as a young woman. I was taught that my value lived in my usefulness, and so when someone needed me, I felt valuable. I felt like I was living correctly, and people who needed things from me reinforced that feeling every time they came to me with their hands out. In a strange and painful way, I was getting something from the arrangement too. I just did not know what it was costing me until the account ran dry. Here is what I know now, at 86, that I wish I had known at 35. The people who genuinely love you will ask how you are and wait for the real answer. They will notice when you are tired, and they will say so. They will show up for you, not because you have done something for them recently, but because you matter to them. The care will move in both directions. It will not always be perfectly equal, because life is not perfectly equal. But over time, over years, there will be a fundamental reciprocity. You will feel it. It will feel like rest when you are with them, not like labor. And the people who are using you, even the ones who are doing it without knowing it, they will make you feel responsible for their well-being in a way that quietly, steadily drains you. They will call when they need something and grow distant when they do not. They will respond warmly to your generosity and coolly to your needs. They will frame their taking as your purpose, and they will make you feel selfish for wanting anything in return. You are not selfish for wanting something in return. You are a human being. I gave so much of my life to people who were moving through mine like guests who never intended to stay, and I am not bitter about it. I want to be clear about that. I am not telling you this story from a place of bitterness. I am telling you from a place of having lived long enough to see the whole picture. The people who truly loved me, Thomas, a handful of friends I still have to this day, my children in their imperfect and busy way, those relationships fed me as much as I fed them. They were different in a way I can only describe as weight. They had weight, substance. The other relationships, the ones built on my giving, they were thin. They looked like relationships, but they did not have the same bones. If you are young and you are reading this, I want you to pay attention to how you feel after you spend time with the people in your life. Not during, after. When you are driving home or lying in bed at night, do you feel full or do you feel emptied? That feeling is not nothing. That feeling is information. And it is more honest than anything those people will ever tell you about themselves. You do not have to earn your place in someone's life. If you are constantly earning it, that is not a relationship. That is a job, and you are not being paid. I have had 9 years alone in this house since Thomas left, And in that time, I have learned more about myself than in all the decades before. One of the things I have learned is that I was never too giving. I was giving to the wrong people. And there is a difference. Generosity is a beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things a person can offer. But generosity without discernment is something else entirely. It is an open door in a house you are trying to keep warm. Close some doors, not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of care for yourself and for the love you still have to give. Save it for the people who will hold it carefully. I am 86 years old, and I am still learning. I hope you do not wait as long as I did.